We are joined now by NFL analyst for ESPN, a brainiac, a wizard. Welcome back, Ben Solak. How are you?
I'm well. Okay, how you been?
I'm okay. I'm a little worried about you,
Why is this?
Ben, because only a sick pup spends a Sunday night in February not watching White Lotus or SNL or the All-Star Game. Only a sick pup ranks linebackers on Twitter and on a random night in mid-February. What's wrong with you?
I can't keep. I used to try to keep up with television, and I'm done. I can't do it. There's too many of them. I've never watched a second of White Lotus. I watched season one of Severance. I thought it was delightful. I want to watch season two. I don't remember anything from season one. I like my wife went to a Love Is Blind watch party, and I was like, "Is this season
Oh,
three?" And it's season eight, and there's just too many things that happen. I'm done on TV. I'm waving the white flag. I can't keep up.
I mean, because you're looking at linebackers and you're getting set for the combine, which I know nothing about. I can't wait to put you on the spot with some
Yeah.
of these. But did I get some Bobby Wagner slander in these rankings?
Bobby collects tackles extremely well because he's a very good tackler and because he's seen everything before under the sun. He's a high tier veteran. When Bobby was great with the Seahawks, it was because of three down athleticism. It was because of the coverage ability, right? The Legion of Boom was all Richard Sherman, all Cam Chancellor, and all Earl Thomas,
Yeah.
but the straw that stirred the drink was the linebackers. It was Bobby Wagner was the
Yes.
keystone of that defense. Bobby's not that athlete anymore, and so Bobby is a two down player who gets picked on in coverage. That's just the nature of the player. Now he's great for Dan Quinn. He gets the defense set. He helped maximize Frankie Luvu. He's got some value to him, but he's not the guy he used to be, even though the tackle numbers are still up there.
Matthew Hamilton, are you somewhere? This is Matthew Hamilton's favorite player. Do you have any retort to that? He's not that player anymore. He's not that athlete anymore, Matthew.
I mean, listen, 34 years old, he might have lost some stuff here or there. But yeah, that I don't know that defense has the year that it had without him there. I think, as you said, he brings a lot of value to Dan Quinn's defense. I think he's a big part of why Frankie Luvu had had the season that he had there. I think he elevates everybody around him still, but I still think he's a good player, but
What
I
Bobby
see what
is
you're
doing,
saying.
what Bobby is doing at his age is impressive. However, when you contextualize it with the rest of the mid-20s linebackers in the league, tough to get him in the top 10, in my opinion.
All right, Ben's saying it like it is. He's reading us for filth. You and me are over the hill, Hamilton. Scram. Let's go from linebackers to some quarterbacks. You have this amazing piece on ESPN.com that is coming out tomorrow, and it's about project quarterbacks, like reclamation project QBs, guys who can hopefully resurrect their careers, Sam Darnold-esque vibes. Who are some candidates that you think can fit in that bucket?
Yeah, so Sam, it's like, all right, we think he did it, right? Because of the 1 year in Minnesota. Most of the guys who pull it off, right? Geno Smith in Seattle, Baker Mayfield in Tampa Bay. You talk about Jared Goff in Detroit as a candidate, even Ryan Tannehill, right? When he went from Miami to Tennessee and had that big bump in his play. Those guys got to stay in the same building, right? They got to stay with the same team for multiple years. Sam, it's more likely he goes somewhere else. So it's going to be very interesting. We're going to learn a lot about veteran quarterbacks and second chances as Sam leaves Minnesota and where he goes and the success that he has there. But Darnold's a name that's on there. Justin Fields is still a name that's on there, right? Like I think that there was a big, what will Fields be outside of Chicago narrative last offseason. And then, with the Steelers, he's just mid, and then Russell Wilson gets the job and there's nothing exciting anymore. But we have to remember Baker Mayfield was in Carolina before he was with Tampa Bay, and Sam Darnold was with Carolina before he was with the Vikings, right? It's not always the first team that you get to that kind of gives you that spark, gives you that moment that you need. So I think Fields is still up there. Daniel Jones is a name to watch for the next couple of years, right? Getting out of that Giants franchise and all of their difficulties over the last few years and kind of resetting the clock. Jameis Winston's still a name that I think you've seen him now been a good QB2 bridge quarterback. What's he going to look like when he has a really elite receiver? Those are the guys that I'm looking at as the future reclamations, the future Sam Darnolds.
I think Justin Fields is the most interesting one. He was 4-2, good organization. I don't know that they have the weapons, all of that. What's a good landing spot in your opinion if he were to succeed?
Yeah, so I like Fields to the Giants. Giants have the third overall pick. I think the Giants definitely want to draft a quarterback without question, but they do have Malik Neighbors now. And one of the most important things when you start looking at the reclamation projects who've been successful, most of those guys have had like elite wide receivers to throw the ball to, right? Like Justin Jefferson for Sam Darnold and Mike Evans for Baker Mayfield and A.J. Brown for Ryan Tannehill. they're like break glass in case of emergency players. There's big red buttons that you can smash when you're freaking out in the pocket, right? I'm not yet an elite quarterback. I can't make it all happen myself, but I know I have a guy who just wins one-on-one. And so he saves you so many times. And I think Malik Neighbors can be that guy. And then Brian Daboll was at his most successful when he was designing quarterback running game, right? When he was doing that for an inaccurate Josh Allen in the late 2010s, and when he did that for Daniel Jones in their first year together in 2022. And so if I were Fields, I would want to get to the Giants, who again are probably going to draft the guy, but it might not be the best guy at 3. Maybe they don't get the guy they want. We got a few months still of the draft process now, but I'd want to get there. And even if I'm QB2, I'm thinking to myself, man, if I get 4-6 games as the starter and I get Brian Daboll designing the quarterback running game for me, I can probably be pretty productive. So that's the spot I think fits the best for Fields.
You were ageist against Bobby Wagner, and you like the Packers because they're young. That's what the vibe I catch from you all over ESPN and all of your brilliant work. They're on the up and up. We get it. To be a contender, what do they need to add?
Yeah, I like teams that have a good bedrock, have a good foundation, have great young core, and then just need to add the stars, because the stars are much easier to find, right? In terms of like, all right, just pay T. Higgins. Like, I know how to get a wide receiver one in the building. There's one there, and I need to pay him, and now he's there, right? They need to get a high-impact wide receiver, and then they need to get a high-impact defensive player, whether that's in the secondary or in the pass rush. I think in Edgerrin Cooper, they're the rookie linebacker who was bonkers good in November and December. I think they have a guy in a second level who's emerging that way, Xavier McKinney. Last year's big free agent spend to get that guy at safety. You can get me a high-impact cover man, right, at corner on the outside, or you get me a high-impact pass rusher and the ability to get after the quarterback. Then pair that with the big spend at wide receiver. Then I have the stars necessary to win January football. I already have the scheme and the young players necessary to kind of win in the regular season and present that way. So to me, they read not dissimilar to how the Lions read in 22 and 23, where it was like, okay, like, all these young players, all these drafted players, everybody's working well. We got to get some high impact dudes, right? They had Aiden Hutchinson emerge. They went and they drafted Jameson Williams. They went and gotten Carlton Davis in free agency. And you start to get some more of the blue chip players that turn you from a spunky young team into an actual contender.
It's going to be Davante Adams though, right?
Does he want to go back to Green Bay? Play for Jordan Love? Is that the vibe?
Mm-hmm.
All right. That's vibe. I mean, yeah. I like that. I like that because he doesn't have to be the high volume guy every single game. Because there's games where they can get away with Jaden Reed being the high volume guy and Tucker Kraft and Christian Watson.
You don't think Davante Adams is still playing at an elite level where he can be the number one guy?
I know. I do. I absolutely do. I like, again, with my older players, that if they don't have to be high volume guys, I keep them fresher for January football. I prefer T. Higgins, but I prefer T. Higgins like everybody. I think T. Higgins is like the 11th best receiver in football. I think he's unbelievably good. And so I want T for everybody. I want T for the Packers. I want him for the Patriots. I want T in every single spot I can get him. Then once we get further down the list, no, Davante's got good years of football left in him. I believe that.
It just, I wonder, like with the Packers and Goody, like is there a pride, like it's like admitting that not having a number one wide receiver wasn't effective. Will they go? I hope they do. They have to go for it.
If you're going to be prideful in the NFL, you ain't going to fill the trophy case, man. I mean, like, it's a lot of the wisdom to learn from like the Eagles' success is assume you're going to miss, right? Take Quinion Mitchell in the first round and then take Cooper DeJean in the second. Redundancy at corner. Add Bryce Huff and add Nolan Smith and keep Brandon Graham in the building and draft Jalex Hunt because you want redundancy at edge rusher. Some of these swings are going to miss. And so you have to be able to say, all right, range of outcomes. It's much better to have 3 cracks at this than 1 crack at this. So maybe Jaden Reed emerges. Maybe Christian Watson has a fully healthy season. But we're also going to add Davante Adams because we need somebody to be that player for us next season.
Jordan, when I sat with him at Super Bowl, he, not totally joking, said we're going to go defense probably in the draft. Which
is defensible. It really is. Like the Packers 4-down rush was one of the worst in football this year. And then at corner, they've had a guy in Jair Alexander who's played really well when healthy, but just has not strung together, 16 game, 17 game seasons in quite some time now. I think they know they need a new future at corner. So I find that to be completely defensible. But if they do walk into next season with the exact same receiver room, there's going to be narratives. You and I are going to be talking about it in August. And once we get 4 weeks of, one bad Romeo Doubs game, a bad Dontavian Wicks drop, the noise is going to get louder, and that's going to start to fracture the locker room a little bit.
I could see T in Green Bay. I think he'd be a perfect fit, whether it's him or Devontae. I know I talked to Jordan about adding veteran leadership, what a vet would bring to that young locker room, and he seemed to think that would be a great idea. So either or, and they're obviously playing both at an elite level. It'll come down to money and fit. But you're mentioning this defense and these pass rushers. Like I talked to a bunch of them at Super Bowl. You know, Maxx Crosby, Micah Parsons, these trade rumors, Myles Garrett, all of that. What do you think is going to happen? How does it shake out?
It's tricky. I think that Mac probably makes the free agent cycle and is one of the more interesting edge rushers. Khalil Mack had a great season for the 2024 Chargers, just weirdly excellent. I'd want him before I'd want like Hassan Reddick, who I also think is probably going to make the free agency cycle. Like that's the sort of name I'm looking for. Trey Hendrickson is an interesting one. I would be, for the last like 18 months, I would have been calling the Bengals and trying to get Trey Hendrickson out of there. I know he requested a trade and then didn't get one, and then he had the unbelievable season for them. But Hendrickson's a guy who I think could just print 15 sacks for me over the course of a season. Like that is a highly valuable trait that not a lot of people are giving you. So those are the names that I think you end up looking at for the Packers. I'd be surprised if Maxx Crosby gets out of Vegas. I mean, just if Max were willing to leave Vegas for a contender, I think it would have happened by now. I think that Max is just so committed to that team in a very admirable way that I wouldn't be trying my darndest to get him out of the building. I think he's just going to stay there. Maxx Crosby becomes available. That's a multiple firsts sort of a proposition. Like I think you're putting everything on the table there. Then Myles Garrett. I think that Myles is going to decide where he wants to go if and when the Browns trade him, and that deal is going to kind of be done very quickly and in a dramatic fashion. And so it's all right. If Myles Garrett wants to be a Green Bay Packer, then he's going to hold out and the Browns are going to do this, that, and the other thing and force the issue. Other than that, I don't know. I think this is going to last for a long time. I think you're going to see Myles Garrett back in a Browns uniform. I think it's going to be frustrating. Wow. It's going to be training camp drama. I don't think the Browns don't want to move him. He's Myles Garrett. You can't want to move the guy.
I want them to let him live. Just let him live. Let him go get a taste of winning. And I think Matt,
the other guy, I would call about just to call about him. TJ Watt's only got 1 year left on his deal. And I feel like I would want to just make sure the Steelers were aware they only had 1 year left on his deal. And if they didn't want to extend him, be aware that other teams would be willing to extend him if they wanted to ship him over there. So I'd also call about TJ a little bit.
Interesting. I can't imagine that happening, but crazier shit has happened.
It was not the best TJ Watt season last year. And so I wonder if the Steelers are worried about the age a little bit. He was not as fast off the ball. He wasn't as productive. I don't know. It's an interesting thing to look at. He's due $30 million. So it's weird. It's a weird spot.
Didn't he win a big award a couple weeks ago?
Did he win? No. Surtain won Defensive Player of the Year.
I know, but he didn't win a big award? I'm trying to think. What did he just win? What did JJ Watt present him with? Wasn't that at honors? What am I crazy? Is that another year I'm thinking?
I don't go to honors. I'm ranking slot corners during honors. You're the one who goes to honors. Yeah. I don't know. I know
you like the Packers. You like the Ravens on the other side. I'm trying to figure out how in like 4 months am I going to be speaking of these Kansas City Chiefs? Like revenge tour, us v them, is everybody hopping off board? What does that look like? Now there's a clock on Travis Kelce. I don't know how much that really matters as far as how they're viewed going into next season. It wasn't, speaking of age and not his best year, like, I mean, that's kind of the vibe with Travis. Do you, if you're them, if you're Veach and company, what are you hoping for?
So I think that it's funny. I feel like in 2022, probably 23, we got to do a little Patrick Mahomes is underrated thing. Because there was the whole Joe Burrow, Lamar MVP. Like, is Mahomes really the guy? And it's like, yes, he very clearly is. Like, Mahomes is the man. And now having lost the Super Bowl in dramatic fashion, it was the worst game of his career. We're gonna get to do another offseason of is Mahomes really elite? It's like, yeah, dude, he is. Like, that the offense is going to be better because it's hard to imagine it being any worse than it was with 15 at the helm. The defensive talent drain and some of the free agents decisions that have to come down the mountain. It's going to matter on the offensive side too. Like, that's the thing to watch out for. You have Trey Smith, you have Charles Omenihu, you have Justin Reed, who I think is deserving of a nice contract. You have Marquise Brown at wide receiver. You've got Nick Bolton at linebacker. Like, there's just guys and guys and guys that might be leaving the Chiefs. And so you're probably hoping to let some big contracts leave. Trey Smith, I think, being a guy, Nick Bolton being guys that you hope that you can be able to replace him in the draft in the middle rounds. And Veach is just typically been a pretty good drafter, like outside of round one. Some of the round one misses have been a problem for this team. But you're probably just hoping to get younger, get a little bit faster at the wide receiver positions. Rashee Rice comes back healthy. The offense improves a little bit, and Spags just plugs all the holes for you on defense, and you run this thing back.
Just like that, easy peasy for Veach. You can check out Ben Solak's genius work sizing up slot corners and linebackers and being ageist, which is something I learned about you and your wife going to watch parties for Love is Blind. I love all of these things for you. Get a little rest in there, would you? Ben Solak's work can be seen all over ESPN.com. You know, Brett Veach, the Chiefs have a GM. The Jags, Bueller, combine next